Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to yet another video at Moto Mindsets. And this day I was very happy because I was able to ride both of those beautiful bikes. And this video is about the Honda Shadow. How beginner friendly is it?
Zo denk je? Ja, gewoon denk ik. Ja, oké. Nou, staat er voor in.
So, to start this video off, I lent this bike from the guy right in front of me. He trusted me with his bike. He only has his driver license for 2 months. He just bought this bike. So I'm very thankful that he gave me this opportunity. And as you might know, I never record inside my helm because it's dangerous. So all audio is recorded afterwards, after I did my research and after I are completely safe at home. When I create beginner bike reviews, I do that by a score list, who is always linked in the description down below. And I work with 4 categories. And the first category is riding. How does it ride? What do you need to take into account when you're considering a bike like this as your first bike? And the first subcategory of riding is engine power. And this, I have to be honest, this surprised me a little because it's an 1100cc V-twin motorcycle, so I thought enormous of torque and power and stuff like that. But it really is very manageable. This bike has 78 brake horsepower, but it's also pretty heavy and it's very smooth. And therefore, it really is a great balance between performance and control. And on performance wise, engine power wise, this bike scores a 6. Next category is engine power delivery. How jerky is it? How much room do you have for mistakes? If you shift back and it blocks your rear tire, is this going to happen? And the answer is, I thought it would. It's a 2-cylinder, it's a V-twin, it has 1100 cc's. I thought it would be enormously difficult and very unfriendly for beginners. But the reality is, it's really smooth. It really is very friendly and very predictable. And therefore, engine power delivery wise, it scores an 8. And then you have weight. The heavier it is, the harder it can be to maneuver on tight spots, on parking spots, parking it, moving it around. And it's not light, it's 245 kilos, and therefore it's relatively heavy, and low speed maneuvering can be a little trick. The engine is very low, which helps with its weight, but nonetheless, because of the heavy weight, it scores a 4. And then something you all know it will be good at, and that is stability. And this is not my first cruiser I drive, and I recently driven a Honda cruiser from the 80s, and it was very unstable. But this bike is perfectly smooth and incredibly created for long trips and very stable, and therefore it scores an 8. And yet again, a category that is not its weak point of this bike, and that is aerodynamics. This bike is made for longer rides on highways, and there's almost nothing that can beat it. Maybe a very big Harley or a Goldwing in that category, but it has some trouble with wind from the side, and therefore aerodynamic wise it scores a 7. And then the next category, seat height. And it's relatively low, only 750 millimeters, which makes it very accessible for shorter riders and easy to handle with stops and cornering and maneuvering around. So its weight is on the high side, but the seat is very beginner friendly. Therefore, it scores a 7. And then we have the most fun part of the riding category, and that is fun. And I don't have to tell you, this bike is amazingly fun. It's predictable, it's smooth, it's a little bit heavy, but other than that, there's nothing to be scared of. You're used to this in like 10 kilometers. And it's more than powerful enough. You can learn a lot of things on it. It's not for the track, but it's not built for the track. and therefore you should not weigh it like it is for track. If you're a guy into this kind of bikes, this is one of the best beginner bikes there is, and therefore fun-wise it scores a 10. And that brings us to the conclusion of riding, because if you count all those numbers and separate it by the amount of categories, you get a score. And the first category of riding, this bike scores a 7.14. The next category is reliability, and the first subcategory of reliability is overall reliability. How reliable is it on average? And I have great news. If you're interested in this kind of bikes, it's very bulletproof. It's produced from 1985 until 2007, and some minor changes have been over the years, of course, but nothing drastic. And you know why? Because when it's good, you keep it. If it's good, you don't have to change it. Never change a winning team. Albert Einstein. And I love to quote Albert Einstein, because Albert Einstein was a pretty smart guy. And Honda heard this quote: never change a winning team. This bike is incredibly reliable. I couldn't find almost no common issues. Some minor things. But guys, this bike is 30 years old. This one is from 96. So, for overall reliability, I give this bike a 9. And then the elephant in the room, and that is its age. The older a bike gets, the more it gets broken down. I know, because my bike is also from the 90s. And it's not really the fault of the manufacturer, but it's just something you have to take into account when you're a new rider and you don't want your bike to be at a garage all the time. That age will drastically bump down its reliability. And that's why I gave the bike's age a 4. And if you don't agree, please piss me off in the comment section down below. I love to give me my more detailed information why I give this 4 to reliability of a Honda. And then we have knowledge. And it's very important that when there is something broken, which is very uncommon on this kind of bikes, but when there is something broken, it's nice if someone knows what there could be wrong with the bike. And if you are someone who search forums and search the internet for issues, no worry, my friend, this bike got you covered. This bike's produced for 22 years. It's very popular. It's in different sizes, in 125, 250, 750, I think 800. I don't know all the numbers of just from my head, but this bike, everyone loves it. It's sold well. There's a lot of information, and people who loved it, people care, you know. And when people care, they put stuff online. You can find almost anything wrong with it. No worry there. So knowledge-wise, this bike scores a 10. And that also helps with the last category of reliability, and that is parts availability. The more they are sold, the more parts are available. The only downside here is that it's very popular in America and not here in Europe. So that bumps it down a little, but parts availability, this bike scores a 7, which brings the total reliability of this bike to a 7.5. So, howdy, Roboy. Until this point in the video, this bike is doing great! I'm trying to do some like Texas accent or anything. I'm not from Texas, as you can't hear, probably. Anyway, the next category might be your most important one as a beginner rider, and because that is safety. And the first subcategory is brakes. And the brakes are fine. They are not amazing, they are not very bad as well, they're just fine. And keeping in mind that this bike is not built to race, and this bike is not built to go crazy fast, I think this brakes on a sport bike from the 90s would be worse than this brakes on this bike from the 90s. But modern bikes have better brakes, no doubt about it, and therefore brake wise this bike scores a 6. And then you have ABS, and we can be very short about ABS. There's no ABS. And that can be a very big problem for newer riders. So ABS wise, this bike scores simply the lowest it can, and that's a 1. And then we have visibility. And visibility is two type of things. The first one, how visible are you? So how good are the lights front, back of you, stuff like that. And the second one is how good can you see stuff. And the first one, it's interesting because it used the old techniques of lights. LED is just way more visible than this, but lights are very big source of light. So not as bad as most 90s bike, but definitely not as good as newer bikes. And the second one is how good can you see stuff. Well, in motorcycles, though usually the front is pretty good and no exceptions here, but its mirrors are very good as well. And you might think the vibration of this V-twin will make it vibrate like crazy and you can't see anything in your mirrors, but just is not the case in this bike. So visibility wise, it actually pretty okay, and therefore it scores a 7, which brings the total for safety for this Honda Shadow up to a 4.67. And that brings us to the last category, and that is price. And the first subcategory is purchase price. How expensive is it to buy a bike like this? You don't want to be your first bike to be crazy expensive. And I have to tell, compared to other bikes from the 90s, it's a bit more expensive than, for say, a VFR or a Gixxer or anything like that. But if you take into consideration the type of bike it is, it's really not that bad. You can see bikes like this for like 5,000 euros. I think that's a good amount to spend on your first bike, and therefore it scores a 7. And then you have maintenance cost, and this is what I asked the owner, but the owner only has it for like 2 months, so I have to rely on the internet, the big web. And the internet tells me that it's just really common moderate cost to maintain this bike, and if you can do things yourself it gets very cheap, and if you have to do something in the shop it gets expensive, because a lot less and less people know how to maintain those bikes. That brings me a little bit of a twist where to put which score, because if you're good mechanic yourself, it's easily a 9. If you can't do anything and you just have to rely on local stores, it's easily a 2. So just in the middle, this bike scores a 5. And then we have operating cost, and by operating I mean how expensive is it to insure, put gas in it and stuff like that. It's also between the middle. It's more fuel efficient than you might think from the 90s, but it's also not new, so something newer would be more fuel efficient, of course. It's a carbureted bike, and therefore you need the more expensive gasoline, which is not inexpensive, of course, but it's not out of ordinary, and therefore it scores a 5 as well. And that brings the total of price to a 5.67. which is a great score for a bike from the 90s. And if you are great with math, or just keeping score on a note somewhere else, and you separate those 4 numbers, you get an average. And that is kind of the verdict of this video. And it's no holy number, it's just my own scale, so don't hang me up on it, thank you very much. But this bike, for beginner friendliness, in my humble opinion, scores a 6.24. So there you got it, my lovely viewers. This bike is great for beginners if you can handle the power and if you're willing to take a little time and money, because it's 30 years old. But it's nothing more than a very special animal you should tame. I will just insert one more very beautiful clip of this bike, and then I have to peace out and see you in the next video. Cheers!